Buddha gives us a very beautiful teaching where he talks about 5 things that nobody in the world can have. Then he says how an unwise person reacts and puts himself into great depression. On the other hand, how a wise person responds in a very positive way, and he is able to tide over such a situation in a very cool way. And finally, he also gives us 5 different methods by which we can pass through such difficulties in life. So let's get into the teaching itself. So first he talks about 5 things that nobody in the world can have, which means that he says that even if you are the highest of high spiritual being, or even if you are like the very powerful god like a Brahma himself, you still cannot have these 5 things. What are the 5 things? First is, he says that beings that are subject to old age shouldn't grow old. That is something nobody can have. That means that either I shouldn't grow old or one of my loved ones shouldn't grow old. It is, he says, it's impossible to have something like that. Like that, he talks about the second thing, which is sickness. He says that either I shouldn't fall sick or one of my loved ones shouldn't fall sick. That is something it is impossible to have. And the third one is death. Either I shouldn't die or one of my loved ones shouldn't die. That is, again, it is impossible to have. And what is the fourth one? The fourth one is, he says that things that are subject to ending. Ending means what? It could be like you are in a very good situation or you are in a good relationship or something like that. They all should end sometime or the other, right? That's what he says, that things that are subject to ending shouldn't end. That is something impossible to have. And the fifth one is, things that are subject to destruction shouldn't be destroyed. That also is impossible to have such a situation. Then he says how a unwise person, when he ends up with any of these 5 situations, he says that he doesn't reflect with wisdom, because reflection is a sign of wisdom, right? He doesn't reflect with wisdom that it is not just me, nobody in the world can have this good thing, isn't it? So he, because he doesn't reflect with wisdom, and he also doesn't think that if because of this situation, if I'm going to get sad and depressed, I will then not be able to eat properly, then I'll become weak and my facial expression will really start deteriorating, and I also will not be able to do my work and duties properly, and people who do not like me or my enemies will only get elated and encouraged because they are so happy that I am in such a sad, depressed state. See how beautifully Buddha says. And then he says that my friends will only get saddened that I'm getting into such depression. So this foolish person doesn't reflect like this. Because he doesn't reflect like this, he falls into great depression. And he says that such a person is stuck by the poisonous arrow of sadness. That's what he says. And he puts himself into great difficulty. He says so beautifully, this is called an unlearned ordinary person stuck by sorrow's poisoned arrow, who only tortures themselves, he says. Then he goes on to say about a learned noble disciple, that is a wise person. What does this wise person do? He reflects with wisdom. He reflects that this good thing cannot be had by me or anybody else in the world. For this, if I'm going to get sad and depressed, then what's going to happen? Then I'll not be able to do my duties properly. I can't do my work properly. I can't eat well. My physical will only get weak. My facial expression will deteriorate. And what's going to happen? My enemies are only going to get elated and happy and encouraged, and my friends will get sad. So since he reflects like this in all different ways, he is very careful and he doesn't fall into depression. And because of that, he says that um, This is called a learned noble disciple who has drawn out sorrow's poisoned arrow, stuck by which an unlearned ordinary person only tortures themselves. Then he says, sorrowless, free of thorns, that noble disciple only extinguishes themselves. That is, he stays cool. That's what Buddha says. Then he recites a very beautiful verse which should have looked very nice in the Pali language, but the meaning has come out beautiful in the translation. Let's look at it. He says that these are the 5 things that cannot be had by any ascetic or Brahmin or a god or Mara or Brahma or anyone in the world. Then he says that sorrowing and lamenting doesn't do even a little bit of a good. When they know that you are sad, your enemies are encouraged. When astute person doesn't waver in the face of adversity, as they are able to evaluate what's beneficial. Isn't it true? Because when we don't waver, obviously we'll be able to evaluate what is beneficial for us. Their enemies suffer seeing that normal facial expression doesn't change. Buddha says that even your enemies are saddened seeing that even your facial expression hasn't changed when you're facing so much of difficulties. Then he gives us 5 different methods by which we can pass through such difficulties. What are the 5 things he talks about? Chanting. Next is recitation. Third is fine sayings. Fourth is charity. And fifth is traditions. If by means of any such thing you benefit, then by all means keep doing them. Then finally he says that, but if you understand that this good thing cannot be had by me or anyone else, you should accept it without sorrowing, thinking the karma is very strong. What can I do about it? So if you look at it, Buddha gives us 5 different methods. What are the 5 methods by which we can tide over and pass through this difficult situation? One is chanting. Chanting is a very powerful method. Someone who was very close to me, he was reciting the loving kindness chanting, which is a very beautiful chanting. He used to just keep chanting right from the morning till the night, and he was just sharing that really helped him because it ensured that his mind doesn't get into negativity, or because sadness and depression is a very unwholesome state, right? But when you're chanting something very positive, very nice, what happens? We are replacing something very negative, unwholesome state, with a very wholesome state. Same way recitations could even be just even listening to nice teachings, like for example now right now you're listening to Buddha's teaching, so that's also a very nice way. Or you can also recite some nice good teachings which are very uplifting. Next is fine sayings, are like something like proverbs or something. Even we have in Dhammapada. The Dhammapada has like very short sayings of the Buddha which are very uplifting. Charity we all know, whenever we do any voluntary work, it is so uplifting. So that's why Buddha says you can do charity. On traditions, every family has some tradition. Just maintaining the tradition, just doing those traditions itself puts our mind in a very positive state. So that's why he says. And last one also is so beautiful. This is again someone who was very close to me. The person was saying when he was going through a lot of difficulties, and despite of the best of his effort, there's nothing much he could do. At that time when he was saying what Buddha says here, my karma is very strong, what can I do about it? He was just saying that it gave him so much of peace of mind, just to say and accept and make peace. My karma is very strong, what can I do about it? He said was very nice for him. This is a beautiful teaching. I have pasted the entire teaching in the description below. I have also given the link to the teaching, so you can just go and read the free book. It's very nice and uplifting. I really hope it is very useful for you, and it's always so inspiring to share Buddha's teaching. Thank you so much.